thought I was doing the right thing, said. I'd do to the woman everyone expected me to love. I smiled in wedding photos. I built a life. I wore the mask. But behind every smile was a truth I never dared to speak, because while I married her, my heart was never mine to give. It already belonged to someone else, someone I wasn't supposed to love, but couldn't stop loving. This is not just a story about betrayal or forbidden love. This is a story about identity, choices, and the quiet pain of pretending. A story about two hearts, and one lie too big to live forever. This is, I married her, but I was in love with him. The hall shimmered with golden lights. Chandeliers hung from the ceiling like frozen fireworks, and jasmine garlands draped over every surface, releasing their soft perfume into the air. Laughter, the clinking of glasses, camera flashes, it was the perfect wedding. Everyone said so. Everyone believed it. Everyone except me. My heart beat so loudly inside my chest. I was sure someone would notice. My palms were sweaty under layers of intricate Sherwani fabric. I smiled, posed, nodded, and answered all the congratulations like I was in a trance. Not because I was nervous about being married, because I saw him. Zane stood near the back, half-shrouded. In shadow, wearing a navy blue suit that looked too sharp for someone trying not to be noticed. His eyes met mine for just a second. That was all. But in that second, I was no longer at my wedding. I was 20 again, in our shared college apartment, with late-night coffee and shoulder brushes that lasted a second too long. With his hoodie still folded in my closet, and memories of his breath on my neck when he drunkenly passed out next to me. We never talked about those moments. Not back then, not after, and especially not after I got engaged. Zane disappeared when I announced it. No message. Tall. Nothing until today. Beta, my mother said, nudging me with a proud smile. They're calling you for the ring ceremony. I looked at Santa, my bride, radiant in crimson and gold, her eyes sparkling with a love so pure it made my stomach twist. She didn't deserve what was in my heart. But I was here. I had made this choice. I had followed the path that made sense, the one everyone expected, the one that kept things easy, clean, honorable, but honor has a price. I slipped the ring onto her finger, and the applause was thunderous. Cameras flashed, Santa beamed. I felt like I was dying quietly inside, because I couldn't stop thinking about the man whose eyes had found me in that crowd, who had stayed away, maybe to protect me, maybe to punish me. I just wanted 1 second. With him, just to say, what? I didn't know, that I missed him, but I still felt it, whatever it was. He didn't stay for the dinner. That night, I lay next to Sana, her back turned to me as she drifted into a peaceful sleep. I watched the ceiling fan whirl above us, my throat dry. I hadn't said more than a few words to her since the guests. Left her hand rested gently on the sheets between us, not quite touching mine. All I could think of was Zane. Was he angry? Did he hate me? Did he think I was a coward? I closed my eyes and whispered into the dark, Zane. I didn't know she heard me. The next morning, she was quiet. She didn't ask anything, just went through breakfast with the grace she always carried. But something had changed. I could feel it. You okay? I asked. She looked up, smiled faintly. Of course, it was a big day. I nodded. The lie sat between us, like an uninvited guest. Days passed, we settled into the new home. The rituals, the dinners, the visits from extended family. My phone buzzed often, but never with the name I longed to see. Until one evening after dinner, with Santa's cousins, I came into our bedroom to find a message. Zane, I shouldn't have come, but I had to see if you looked happy. I stared at the screen for a long time, typed and deleted a dozen replies. Finally, I settled on, me, you looked good. I wasn't ready to see you. Seconds passed, then minutes. Then Zane, you didn't look happy. I didn't reply, because he was right. A week later, I found myself outside a familiar apartment. I hadn't meant to come. Told Santa I was visiting an old professor. I knocked. Zane opened the door. He didn't smile, didn't speak. I just stepped aside and let me in. We sat. We didn't talk for 10 minutes. The air between us was charged. Finally, he said, "So, you're a married man now?" "Yeah. Is it everything you dreamed of?" I looked down. "She's amazing," I said. "But He looked at me. "You what?" I met his eyes. "I don't feel whole." He laughed once, bitterly. "You never did. You always gave parts of yourself to people. Never the whole. Never to me." I stood. "You don't get to say that." "Why not? You think marrying her makes you untouchable? Makes everything you did disappear?" My voice cracked. "What did I do?" Zane stood too, now face to face. "You let me fall. In love with you? Then you ran." I didn't respond. Couldn't. He looked at me, softer now. "You said my name in your sleep that night before the wedding. Did you think I wouldn't hear it?" I froze. He stepped closer. "Even in your dreams, you chose me." "But in the morning you chose her?" I turned and left. I couldn't handle it. Not then. Back home, I climbed into bed next to Santa. She stirred. "You smell like old places," she murmured. Then turned away. I lay awake until dawn, thinking about the man who waited too long. Or maybe the man I didn't have the courage to wait. For the vows had been said. The guests had gone home. The honeymoon photos were posted and forgotten. From the outside, everything about my life looked ... right. Predictable, solid, textbook happy. But on the inside, I was unraveling, quietly and slowly, thread by thread. My name is Daniel. This is part 2 of the story no one saw coming. The house my wife and I moved into after the wedding was a modest 2-bedroom on the edge of town. It had soft yellow walls, an overgrown backyard, and the kind of silence that clung to your skin. Emma, my wife, loved it instantly. She saw it as a blank slate, a future waiting to be written. I saw it as a retreat, a place to hide the parts of myself that didn't fit the mold I'd chosen. And then there was him. Liam, he was always there. At least that's how it felt. My best friend since college. We met during freshman orientation. He had a crooked smile and a habit of talking too fast when he was excited. We clicked instantly, not in the surface-level way people bond over shared classes or dorm rooms, but something deeper, magnetic. Like we recognized something in each other before we had the language to name it. Back then, I told myself it was brotherhood, camaraderie, a once-in-a-lifetime kind of friendship. But if that were true, why couldn't I stop thinking about him? When I lay beside my wife at night, we stayed close after graduation. He moved just 2 blocks away, worked as a freelance graphic designer, and always found time to stop by. Helped us move into the new house. He's painted the guest room with me. Shared beers on the back porch like nothing had changed. But everything had. One night, maybe 6 months after the wedding, he came by with a bottle of red and 2 mismatched mugs. Emma was out visiting her sister, and I remember thinking how quiet the house felt without her. I should have felt lonely. I didn't. I felt ... aware of him. He lounged on the couch like he owned the place, barefoot and grinning, and I sat across from him pretending that everything in my life was fine. The conversation drifted. Work, movies, politics, music. But somewhere in the quiet between topics, he looked at me and said something I wasn't ready to hear. "You're not happy?" I laughed it off, said something about stress and adulthood and too many bills. But his eyes didn't waver. He knew me too well. He saw through me too easily. "Danny," he said, only he still called me that. "You used to light up when you talked about the future. Now it's like you're walking through your life like it's someone else's story." I shrugged. Told him marriage was just different. That love changes shape over time. That growing up meant letting go of some things. He didn't argue. He just looked away. And that silence hurt more than anything he could have said. Over the next few weeks, I started noticing the gap. Not between me and Emma, but between who I was and who I was pretending to be. I'd wake up in the middle of the night with this ache in my chest. Not fear, not anxiety, just this deep, persistent longing for something I couldn't name. And I started avoiding Liam. Not because I didn't want to see him, but because every time I did, it got harder to pretend I didn't feel something. One day he showed up unannounced. I was in the garage, covered in sawdust, trying to fix a cabinet door that never really closed right. He leaned against the frame, arms crossed, eyes narrowed. "You ghosted me," he said. "I've been busy." "Bullshit." I didn't respond. "Just tell me," he said, softer now. "Did I do something? Did I cross a line?" I looked at him then. Really looked at him. The way his jaw tensed when he was frustrated. The way his eyes searched mine, desperate for truth. And I wanted to tell him everything. How I thought about him at night. How sometimes I dreamed of a life where we hadn't buried our feelings beneath years of silence. How I hated myself for marrying someone I cared about, but didn't love the way I should. But I didn't say any of that. Instead, I said, "You didn't do anything." And I walked back inside. That night I stood in the bathroom staring at my own reflection, wondering who I was becoming. Wondering if I had the courage to face what I'd buried for so long. Emma knocked gently on the door. "You okay in there?" Forced a smile into my voice. "Yeah, just tired." But I wasn't tired. I was terrified, because Liam was always there, and I'd never let him in. I tried to stay away. I told myself over and over that it had to stop. The thoughts, the glances, the longing. I was a married man, a father. I had a life I'd built with sweat, sacrifice, and a quiet kind of duty. But ever since that moment, in the hallway, the way he looked at me, the way time seemed to stall, something inside me had cracked. And once it did, I couldn't seal it back up. I started noticing him more, not just as my best friend, not just as someone who had always been there. No. I started seeing him as someone I wanted, in ways I had spent my entire life denying. It was the way his voice would drop into something deeper when we were alone. The way his smile lingered a little longer now. The way his touch, casual, harmless, felt like fire against my skin. And, worst of all, he knew. He knew exactly what he was doing. It was a rainy afternoon the first time I slipped. I was working late in my home office. My wife had gone to visit her sister. The kids were at their grandparents'. And he, Daniel, had come over to drop off a tool I'd left at his place after helping him fix his bathroom last weekend. It should have been a quick hello, "Thanks, man," and a handshake instead. But it turned into ours. We ended up sitting on the couch, drinks in hand, an old movie playing in the background, something we used to do in college. Back when life was simpler and love felt like a word we didn't have to define so carefully. "Do you remember this?" he asked, nudging. "Me?" As the credits rolled. "Yeah," I laughed. "You made me watch it like what, 20 times? He smiled, a little sheepish. "I liked watching it with you. You always got so emotional." I rolled my eyes. I did not. "You cried when the dog died. I had allergies." He leaned closer, and the laughter between us softened into something quieter. "You've always been good at pretending," he said, even back then. I froze. Pretending what? That you didn't feel something? You didn't say what something was. He didn't have to. It was written in the way his gaze searched mine, in the way his voice trembled just slightly, like he was either terrified or too sure of me. I turned away. "You should go." "I will," he said, but made no move. "Unless you want me to stay." I didn't answer, not with words. Instead, I stood up, walked to the window, and stared out at the rain. My heart was hammering so hard I thought he could hear it. He came up behind me slowly, close enough that I could feel his warmth but not touching. "Not yet. I won't do anything you don't want," he said softly. "But I need you to stop lying to yourself." My throat tightened. "You think I haven't noticed? The way you look at me now? The way you hesitate when we say goodbye, like, you don't want it to end?" I didn't turn around, he continued. "I know you love her. I know you've built a life. But I've seen the way your eyes flicker when I touch your shoulder, the way you forget to breathe when I laugh at your stupid jokes. I know you better than anyone." Still, I said nothing. I couldn't, because he was right. Every word I stood. At the edge of the kitchen island, my coffee growing cold in my hands. Emma was talking something about school pickup or groceries, or how the neighbor's dog got into our yard again. I nodded when I was supposed to. I smiled when she paused. but I wasn't listening, because I could still hear his voice. Won't do anything you don't want, but I need you to stop lying to yourself. The words echoed like a haunting, like something stitched into the walls of this house. I hadn't seen Liam since that night 2 weeks ago. The night I came this close to stepping across a line I swore I'd never cross again. The night everything nearly changed, and somehow still did. Emma placed a bowl in front of me. Cereal. Sliced banana. It's the kind of love that looked like routine. I have that thing after work, she said. Don't forget dinner with your parents. I won't, but I would. I always did lately. That afternoon I drove to the lake. It was a spot Liam and I had gone to hundreds of times in college. In our 20s, even a few years ago before I got married. It used to be our place. Just trees, silence, water, and us. He was already there, sitting on the hood of his car, arms crossed, like he had been waiting for me all day. You came, he said without surprise. I told myself I wouldn't. Yeah, me too. I didn't say anything. I just walked over and stood next to him, watching the reflection of clouds stretch across the still water. I loved her, I said quietly, like I was confessing something sacred. I still do, in my way. I know, he said, but when I'm with her, I feel like I'm pretending to be a version of myself she believes in, like I'm borrowing someone else's life and trying not to break it. He looked down. And when you're with me? I hesitated. I feel like I belong somewhere. The silence after that wasn't awkward. It was devastating, because we both knew what that meant. He waited until we were sitting in my car, parked outside the apartment building where he lived a place. I had promised myself I'd never visit again after what almost happened that night on the couch. We'd gone for a walk, shared a coffee, pretended things were simple, but they weren't. Not anymore. Not since I admitted I wanted him. Not since we sat in silence by the lake and said everything without really saying anything. Now, the weight of his question hung between us like fog on the windshield. If you love me, leave her. I turned my head, staring out at the darkened streetlights. A couple passed us on the sidewalk, young, laughing, holding hands like the world wasn't crumbling under them. I can't just walk out, I said. My voice sounded foreign, hollow. I didn't say it would be easy, Liam replied. I said it because it's the only way this ends without destroying all of us. He wasn't angry, yet made it worse. He was calm, steady, resolved, and I was unraveling. I drove home in silence, Emma asleep when I got there, the house dark and still. I stood in the hallway, staring at our wedding photo, my hand in hers, her eyes bright with love. Mine, blurred now by years of pretending. Was it love, what we had, or just comfort wrapped in commitment? Because the truth was brutal, I did love her, but not in the way I loved him. With Emma, I felt safe. With Liam, I felt alive. It didn't happen the way I thought it would. I always imagined that when the truth came out, it would be explosive, shouting, tears, maybe something broken. But when it finally happened, it was quiet. Too quiet. It started with a look. Emma had just returned from visiting her mother. She dropped her bag by the door, kissed me on the cheek, and went to unpack like nothing was wrong. But I could tell something was different. She didn't ask where. I'd been all weekend. She didn't ask why my phone was off. She already knew. Dinner was awkward. The kids were with their cousins. It was just the two of us. We sat across from each other like strangers. She moved her food around on her plate. I kept waiting for her to say something. She never did. Finally, I broke. I need to tell you. Something, I said. She didn't look up. I haven't been honest with you. Not for a long time. Now she looked at me. Her eyes were calm, no surprise, no anger. Just tired, I know, she said. Silence stretched between us. I didn't mean to lie, I whispered. It just happened. I didn't know how to stop. Is it him? She asked. My throat closed. She nodded slowly like she had finally let herself say out loud what her heart had known for months, maybe years. I saw the way you looked at him, she said. The way you flinch when I touch you now. I've been pretending to, but I'm exhausted. I couldn't speak. because this wasn't how I expected her to react. She wasn't breaking. She was releasing. I woke up in an unfamiliar bed, in a quiet apartment with many boxes still taped shut. No wedding ring on the nightstand, no footsteps in the hallway, no kids calling from the other room, just me alone. It had been 6 weeks since Emma and I sat across from each other in the kitchen and told the truth neither of us wanted to admit out loud. 6 weeks since I told Liam I needed space, not because I didn't love him, but because I had never stood on my own 2 feet. I lost both of them that night, and I deserved to. I'd moved into a small apartment downtown, bare walls, second-hand furniture, a rented bed that creaked when I turned over. The silence was loud, the loneliness louder. But for the first time in years, the reflection in the mirror didn't feel like a stranger. I wasn't hiding anymore. Not from her, not from him, not from myself. People always say the truth sets you free, but they never talk about the cost. They never mention how freedom sometimes looks like devastation. How becoming honest means losing the lies you wrapped your life around. But here's the thing I didn't expect. Once everything was stripped away, the titles, the obligations, the expectations, I felt something I hadn't felt in a long time. Peace. I lost everything I thought I needed. The house, the marriage, the routine I built my life around. But in losing all of that, I found something I never really had. Myself. I'll always carry the weight of the hurt I caused. To her, to him, to myself. But I won't carry shame anymore. I made mistakes, yes, but they were human, honest, real. I loved her in the only way I knew how. But I belonged to him in a way I could never explain. And now I don't need to explain it to anyone, because for the first time in my life, I'm not hiding, not behind a smile, not behind a marriage, not behind silence. I may have lost the life I had, but I finally have the one I choose, and that to me is worth everything.